The Battle of Watling Street was fought between Boudica's forces and those of the Roman Empire in 60 or 61 AD. The battle took place along Watling Street, which is now Watling Street in modern-day England. During the revolt, Queen Boudica led her tribe to victory against the occupying Romans. However, the province would be pacified shortly after. So let's talk about this battle. But before we do, if you like learning about ancient history, stay tuned for more content. So during the Iron Age, Britain was occupied by several different tribes. The most powerful of these were the Villani tribe, who occupied much of the south, and the Iceni tribe, who occupied much of the east. The Villani were led by King Cassivellaunus, while the Iceni were led by King Cunobeline. Both kings were allies of the Roman Empire and traded with them extensively. This caused some resentment from their subjects, who felt that their leaders were becoming too Romanized. In 43 AD, the Roman Empire invaded Britain and quickly subdued many of the tribes, including the Villani and the Iceni. While the emperors claimed that they were bringing civilization and progress to the island, the reality was very different. Many Britons were killed in the invasion, either by the invading legions or by the allied tribes who were given land for helping the Romans. The taxes were high and the Romans exploited the island for its natural resources. This created a lot of tension and resentment between the occupying force and the locals. When Cunobeline died in 48 AD, his will stipulated that his kingdom should be passed to his daughter, Boudica, and his son-in-law, Prasutagus. However, the Roman governor of Britannia, Suetonius Paulinus, went against the will and annexed the territory to the empire, breaking a sacred oath to do no such thing. He also confiscated all of Prasutagus' property, which included a large fortune in gold. Boudica was furious and wanted revenge. She had been treated with respect by the Roman Empire up until this point, but she felt that her honor had been tarnished. She didn't want to just submit to the loss of her power and influence. She wanted to make an example of the Romans and show them what happens when they try to take advantage of her people. She reached out to other tribes, including the Villani, who had been subjugated by the Romans earlier, and called for a revolt. According to the historian Cassius Dio, Boudica gathered an army of 100,000 warriors. Most historians agree that this number is exaggerated, but it still paints a clear picture of how many people were involved. Some historians estimate that the total number of rebels may have actually been around 2,000, although that's probably a high estimate. Her forces were made up of the Iceni, the Villani and a few other local tribes who were tired of Roman oppression. The Romans were caught off guard by the size and ferocity of the attack. They had expected a small rebellion that could be easily put down, but instead they were facing a full-scale revolt that threatened to engulf the entire province. Boudica's forces attacked several Roman settlements, killing and enslaving many of the inhabitants. The Romans were forced to flee to their major cities for protection, where they barricaded themselves inside the walls. One of the first places attacked was the Roman colony of Camulodunum, which is now Colchester in modern-day England. It was one of the largest and wealthiest Roman colonies in Britain and was home to many of the elite class of the Roman Empire. Boudica and her army arrived at the city in such force that the garrison station there barely managed to escape across the River Colne. The city was sacked and burned, and many of the buildings were destroyed. The next target was the town of Londinium, which is now London. It was another important commercial center for the Romans and was home to many merchants and traders. Once again, the Roman defenders fled across the river, leaving the city undefended. Boudica's army entered the city and began pillaging and burning the buildings. Finally, Boudica and her army marched on the city of Verulamium, which is now St. Albans. It was one of the most important cities in Roman Britain and was the capital of the province of Britannia. It was defended by a large Roman garrison under the command of the governor's brother, Gaius Suetonius Paulinus. The city had been heavily fortified, but Boudica's army surrounded it and began bombarding it with arrows and stones. The Romans were able to hold off the attack for a while, but eventually they were overwhelmed and the city was captured. It is said that Boudica rode into the city on the back of a war chariot and cut the Roman governor's head off and used it as a trophy. After capturing Verulamium, Boudica's army dispersed and she returned to her own territory. So up until this point, Boudica and her army had only attacked settlements. She wanted to avoid engaging the Roman legions in open battle because she knew that she would be outnumbered and outgunned. However, the Romans were eager to put down the revolt and show the Britons that they were in charge. Suetonius Paulinus decided to pursue Boudica and her army and force them to fight. He assembled his legions and marched after the retreating rebels. The two armies met along the road known as Watling Street, which is now Watling Street in modern-day England. The battle was fought in 60 or 61 AD. There is very little information about the battle itself because it wasn't considered to be a major engagement. The sources that do exist are often contradictory or unreliable. We don't know exactly how the battle unfolded or what the two armies were composed of. We also don't know who won the battle. Some sources say that Boudica and her army were defeated, while others say that she was victorious. The truth is that the outcome of the battle is not important. The Roman Empire would send more legions to the province and eventually put down the revolt. Boudica would either die in battle or commit suicide to avoid capture by the Romans. After the battle, the Roman Empire would tighten its grip on the province and make sure that nothing like this would happen again. They would build more roads, forts, and settlements in the province, and they would recruit more soldiers to defend it. The revolt would go down in history as one of the most serious challenges to Roman rule in Britain, and it would be used as a warning to other potential rebels. So what can we learn from this battle? First, we can see how the Roman Empire was able to conquer and subdue the island of Britain. The Roman Empire was able to defeat the Britons in battle and force them to submit to their rule. The Romans were also able to exploit the natural resources of the island and use them to their advantage. The Romans were able to build roads, forts, and settlements in the province, which allowed them to control the island more effectively. Second, we can see how the Roman Empire was eventually able to pacify the province. The Roman Empire was able to send more legions to the province to put down the revolt. The Romans were also able to recruit more soldiers to defend the province, and they were able to tighten their grip on the province. And third, we can see the importance of the Roman Empire in the ancient world. The Roman Empire was able to conquer and subdue many different tribes and peoples, and they were able to maintain control over their vast territories for many years. The Roman Empire was also able to spread their culture and language throughout their empire, and they were able to bring stability and peace to many parts of the world. If you enjoyed this video, check out my others on the Roman army and Roman Britain, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and stay updated. Thanks for watching.